Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today what I want to do is I want to dive back into the Halloween franchise, and what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about the most profitable movies in the franchise. Now what I could do is I could just sit here and go over the budget and how much the movie made at the box office and just give you some generic numbers around that, but you can just Google that, right? I mean, we all know that Halloween 2018 by the numbers has been probably the most profitable because it made well over $250 million at the box office. But the thing is that what I want to look at is I want to talk about the gross margin for each one of these movies. Now, when you actually figure out the gross margin, this dramatically changes the list because some of these movies were made with some weird budgets and got a decent amount of money and their gross margin is much higher. You'll see that as we go through the list. So how did I calculate gross margin? Basically, I just took the total revenue minus the budget and then redivided the total revenue back in, and that gave me a percentage. And what that percentage does, like I said, is it changes the list dramatically, and I know you guys are gonna be interested because I was super fascinated, which is why I came up with this video idea and decided to present it to you guys. But anyways, I don't want to waste your time. We're just going to rank these from the least most profitable movie based on gross margin all the way to the most profitable movies made on gross margin. And like I said, there's going to be some shockers on this list for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at number 12 with a gross margin percentage of 53% is Halloween 5. Now this movie was budgeted at $5.5 million and ended up making $11.6 million at the box office. Now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I have a lot of issues with Halloween 5. Heck, I even made a video remaking the script because I'm that passionate about how bad that movie was and I wanted it to be good, so I made my own script for it. So this is kind of like a good stick-em to him, right? Because I just needed this additional proof that this movie is just one of the worst in the franchise. I know a lot of people may think it's okay or passable, but just what they did to Jamie and completely changing her character and going a completely different direction, the fact that they killed Rachel off within the first 5 seconds, the fact that Myers had the worst mask in the franchise or one of the worst ones in the franchise, the fact that they changed the Myers house. I can go on about for an hour about how bad this movie is, but this little sweet kind of like just prod at it to know that it's the worst profit margin percentage of all the movies in the franchise, just so sweet to me, in my opinion. Coming in at number 11 with a gross margin percentage of 60% is Halloween Resurrection. This movie was budgeted at $15 million and ended up making a $37.6 million profit at the box office. Now again, just like Halloween 5, this is a good little stick-em. I kind of wish it was the worst one just because in my opinion Halloween Resurrection is the worst movie in the franchise, but I'll take it, right? I mean, the studio spent way too much money on this. $15 million, I understand, compared to the other ones, there was some inflation there, obviously. But $15 million, this movie felt like it was made with $5, right? It didn't feel like they put a lot of effort into this movie. And $37.6 million is actually not that bad. I mean, compared to some of the other movies on the list, that's actually a pretty high box office percentage. Again, taking into consideration inflation versus the older movies. But nevertheless, I'm happy to see Resurrection down at number 11 because when I was going through this initially, I thought it was going to rank much higher. Thank goodness it ranked at number 11 with a 60% margin. Coming in at number 10 with a gross margin percentage of 62% is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 from 2009. With a budget of $15 million, the movie ended up making $39.4 million profit at the box office. Again, for me, I'm not the biggest hater of a lot of people of this movie. I actually appreciate it for what it tried to do. I mean, I understand like there's a lot of confusion and this is most people's least favorite Halloween movie, if not one of the bottom 3 for sure. So based on that, I can understand, you know, this percentage does prove that it's one of the least profitable ones, which basically indicates why the franchise again took a hiatus because it was like, all right, well, this movie really didn't make us all that much money because it was budgeted at 15 million and only made just under 40. That's not really that crazy because as we get down the list, you'll see that Halloween 2007 ended up making way more money than this one. So yeah, I can see why the studio went away from it. But personally, like I said, I didn't hate this movie, but I would say that it's in its rightful place with only making just under 40 million and being budgeted at 15 million. All right, so coming in at number 9 with a gross margin percentage of 67% is going to be Halloween 6. Now this movie was budgeted at $5 million and ended up making $15.1 million profit at the box office. Now this one was a little surprising to me. For some reason, I thought that Halloween 6 made a little bit more money than 15 million. I thought it was around 20, but still, I mean, only costing them $5 million to make this movie. 15 million is not the most atrocious strangest thing I've seen. So I can see why they wanted to continue a little bit, maybe do H2O and stuff like that. That made some sense, right? But yeah, again, like I said, it just shows like how much this movie can kind of milk money, because having a $5 million budget really is nothing in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, Halloween 6 for me just is kind of in the middle of the road in terms of Halloween movies, and it's justifiable, I guess, to be towards the bottom of the list with a 67% margin. So yeah, I think it's in a good spot. Coming in at number 8 with a gross margin percentage of 69% is going to be Halloween Ends. Now, this movie was budgeted at $33 million and made a total of $105 million at the box office. Now, this one surprised me for a completely different reason. I did not realize that this movie cost $33 million to make. Honestly, with how much was going on in Halloween Kills, I thought Halloween Kills was going to cost the most out of all three of these movies in this most recent trilogy. But no, Halloween Ends cost the most, which I guess kind of makes sense, but I don't know. It was just weird to me. So yeah, that shocked me. The low box office performance didn't shock me so much because, again, I think that Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends more specifically suffered from the same day release issue that they had, you know, the past couple of movies, because it was coming out on Peacock in the same day as it was released in theaters. So this watered down the box office significantly, which I don't think they're ever going to do again, and justifiably so, right? Because I think it affected the box office. But nevertheless, with Halloween Ends, I'm not going to go on about it because I've done plenty of reviews on it, and you can go watch my other videos. But it was a train wreck of a movie in a lot of ways, but there's good concepts. I didn't hate it overall, but I didn't love it. It was just a weird end of the trilogy. But nevertheless, based on that performance between how much it actually cost to make and it's actually what it made at the box office, it's understandable why it's at a 69% profit margin. But yeah, we're going to leave it there. I think number 8 is a good spot for this. Coming in at number 7 with a gross margin percentage of 71% is going to be Halloween 4. Now, this movie was budgeted at $5 million and ended up making $17.8 million at the box office. This one is not as surprising to me because this was the first movie bringing Michael Myers back to the big screen. So it's understandable that they made a decent amount of money on this because it's Michael Myers' first time being back on screen. The fact that they made this movie with $5 million is even more impressive because, like I said, they just managed to keep these movies super cheap to make for the most part. I mean, especially during that time frame, they were making money hand over fist, because making whatever the difference is, $12.8 million off of this movie was actually not that bad for the time frame. And yeah, like Halloween 4 is like kind of right in the middle for me again in terms of Halloween movies. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. There was some elements that I liked about it more than anything. Like I loved the ending of it with Jamie being like killing her stepmom, or basically killing her stepmom, whatever. So Halloween 4 is definitely one of those movies that's kind of like toward the upper half of my list. But yeah, I think it's a good place for it. You know, 71% is not bad, but yeah, I mean, it's rightfully where it needs to be at number 7. All right, so coming in at number 6 with a gross margin percentage of 77% is going to be Halloween H2O. Now, this movie was budgeted as $17 million and ended up making a profit of $75 million. Now, again, this has the same thing with Halloween 4 because we took a little bit of a hiatus between Halloween 6 and Halloween H2O. So that's why the box office was so much higher, and this was the hype of the Scream phase, right? When Scream was super popular, Halloween kind of adopted that same type of approach, right? So it makes sense as to why it made so much at the box office. The fact that it cost $17 million is a little surprising to me. I figured if I had to wager a guess, it cost around the $10 million mark, but $17 million is still pretty high in my opinion for compared to most of the other movies on this list. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's in a good spot. I mean, H2O is definitely a significantly better movie than most of the movies on this list. But anyway, yeah, that was actually pretty shocking to see that the movie cost so much. But yeah, 77% is not bad, but it's rightfully so kind of in the middle of the list at number 6. Coming in at number 5 with a gross margin percentage of 81% is going to be Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007. Now, this movie was budgeted at $15 million and ended up making $80.4 million at the box office. Now, the last 3 movies have all been kind of the start of a new phase of Halloween movies because there was a big gap between Resurrection and Halloween 2007. So rightfully so, everybody's excited to see Myers. It's a Rob Zombie movie. Everybody's curious to see what the heck all the hype's about, right? So it makes sense that this movie made over $80 million at the box office. It actually did really well. It did double what Halloween 2 did for Rob Zombie's movies. And yeah, it was a good movie. I enjoyed it overall. And yeah, I'm just like actually surprised that the budget was only 15 million. I thought it was going to be somewhere in the 20 to 25 million range because it felt like there was a little bit of a higher budget. But you know, like I said, they found a way to get this movie made as cheaply as possible, and they made a ton of money off of it. So good for them for making over $65.4 million off of this and setting the gross margin at 81%. That's pretty awesome in my opinion. All right, so you've been probably wondering why I started with number 12, and it's because there's actually two movies that tie for the number 4 spot. The first of these movies with a gross margin percentage of 82% is going to be Halloween Kills. Now, this movie was budgeted at $20 million and ended up making a total of $133.4 million at the box office. Now, this actually surprised me again because I thought this movie cost more than Halloween Ends. It felt like there was just a lot more stuff going on, like with the burning house, with the fact that they had the whole hospital, and all the kills. I felt like there was a lot more kills in this movie. So in general, it just felt like there was a lot more going on in this movie. But for them to be able to just make this movie for $20 million and end up making $133.4 million is pretty impressive, because you gotta think, they were going against the same day release on Peacock. And then, in my opinion, like I said, the number should have been a lot higher, and this would have actually had a much higher gross margin percentage. But again, the studio shot itself in the foot for that reason. Halloween Kills is arguably one of the more entertaining movies in the franchise, just for the amount of stuff going on. It's one of the weakest stories in the franchise, but yes, like I said, for this amount of money it made, I think it's really in a good spot, and then I'm glad it actually had a good gross margin percentage overall, and it's tied for number 4. Now, the other movie tied with a gross margin percentage of 82% is going to be Halloween 3. Now, this movie was budgeted at $2.5 million and ended up making $14.4 million at the box office. Now, this shocked me that this movie was only made for $2.5 million. Now, even for that time frame, that is incredibly low for a movie to be made at that much. And then the fact that it made 14.4, because it just blows me away. Halloween 3 is arguably the weirdest movie in the franchise because it doesn't have any connections to all the Michael Myers stuff. But at the same time, it's a really good movie, and as justifiably so, did very well at the box office in my opinion, mainly because of the hype of Halloween 1 and 2, we can say that. But yeah, it's actually pretty surprising to me to see it this high on the list, tied with Halloween Kills at number 4. So yeah, with only a $2.5 million budget, I think that they absolutely killed it with this movie. All right, so coming in at number 3 with a gross margin of 90% is going to be Halloween 2 from 1981. Now, this movie was budgeted at $2.5 million and ended up making over $25.5 million at the box office. Again, insane that they were able to make this movie for only $2.5 million, and they ended up getting $25.5 million. Now, this ended up being substantially lower than Halloween 1978, which we're going to get to in just a minute, but still, that's pretty freaking solid for a movie to be made that cheaply and be able to return that much on their investment. 90% is nothing to laugh at in my opinion, and that's immediately why they wanted to keep doing this. Now, that makes me also question even more why they decided to move away from Michael Myers on Halloween 3, but even still, I think Halloween 3 made a good amount of money back for what it was made for. But yeah, Halloween 2 is always going to be one of my top favorite movies in the franchise. It's definitely the true successor in my opinion. It's the 1978 movie because they happened on the same night. But yeah, I'm happy this movie's so high on the list at number 3. Coming in at number 2 with a gross margin of 95% is going to be Halloween 2018. Now, this movie had a budget of $10 million and ended up making over $255.6 million at the box office. Without a shadow of the doubt, raw money-wise, this made the most money in the franchise. They made over $245.6 million when you take away the budget. Now, this is insane. This movie was made incredibly cheaply for what it was, right? $10 million for a movie in 2018 is like a drop in the bucket. They ended up making this movie with the tightest budget in the world, and then it ended up making a ton of money. And it was because mainly we had a huge gap between Halloween 2009 and then Halloween 2018. There was a lot of hype because it was just a direct continuation after 1978. So there was a lot of hype around it. I get why it was so financially profitable. But again, the gross margin percentage doesn't lie. It showed that they were able to do a lot with their money, in my opinion, with how much they put into it. And the fact that, like I said before, I can't say it again, the fact that this movie was made with only $10 million is absolutely insane, and it is well deserving of being high on this list. And now, coming in at number 1 with a gross margin of 99% is going to be Halloween 1978. This movie was budgeted at $325,000 and made a profit at the box office of $70 million. Talk about an insane return on your investment, right? I mean, for $325,000, you must have been paying your actors and actresses barely any money. I think I saw something where the guy, the Nick Castle that played the Shape in that movie, he was making like $25 a day. It was nothing, right? So the fact that they were able to make this movie with this little of a budget, and the fact it was so insanely successful, just blows my mind to this day. Yes, it's not the most profitable because 2018 has made the most money. Halloween Kills made more money than that. Several movies in the franchise pretty much competed with 1978. But in terms of like raw, like looking at how much it cost to make it and how much they got back on it and getting that percentage, it's absolutely bananas how much it is. It's probably one of the highest gross margin movies ever in movie history. But yeah, it's well deserving to be a #1 for the fact that they put so little into it and got so much in return. But all right, guys, that's the most profitable movies in the Halloween franchise based on gross margin percentage. What was the most shocking movie on the list for you? For me, it was Halloween 3. I did not expect Halloween 3 to compete with Halloween Kills for the top 4 spot, and I expected Halloween Ends to be a lot higher on this list. But anyways, guys, I want to hear down in the comments below what was the most surprising movie on this list for you. And as always, guys, thank you so much for the support and watching this video, and we'll see you next time.